She's a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee twice over.
And I just never, somebody said to me, why is that? And the reason is because, you know, time flies past you.
We played every Friday and Saturday and Sunday, and we opened for big shows like Santa Clara Fairgrounds, you know.
They say Stevie Nicks cast a spell on rock and roll with her mystical voice and ethereal presence. But what she does behind closed doors before every single performance would shock even her most devoted fans. The legendary Fleetwood Mac frontwoman has been hiding a secret ritual that involves ancient prayers, flickering candles, and mystical crystals arranged in precise patterns. What could drive one of music's most iconic voices to perform the same bizarre ceremony for nearly 5 decades? Stephanie Lynn Nicks didn't just stumble into her mystical persona by accident. Born in Phoenix, Arizona in 1948, she grew up surrounded by the desert's ancient energies and her grandfather's tales of Celtic folklore. Her fascination with the supernatural began early, influenced by her Welsh heritage and the mystical stories passed down through generations of her family. When Nicks joined Fleetwood Mac in 1975, she brought more than just her haunting voice and poetic songwriting. She carried with her a deep belief in the power of ritual, magic, and spiritual connection that would define not only her image, but her entire approach to performance. The flowing shawls, the platform boots, the dramatic stage presence, these weren't just fashion choices. They were armor, carefully chosen elements of a larger spiritual practice that most people never knew existed. Her bandmates in Fleetwood Mac quickly learned that Stevie operated on a different plane than most musicians. While they might grab a beer or run through vocal exercises before a show, Nicks would disappear into her dressing room for what she called her preparation time. For years, even her closest collaborators had no idea what actually happened during these mysterious pre-show sessions. The woman who would write Rhiannon and Landslide wasn't just channeling creativity. She was tapping into something she believed was far more ancient and powerful. Her connection to Celtic mythology, Wiccan traditions, and crystal healing wasn't a marketing gimmick or a phase. It was a fundamental part of who she was as both a person and a performer. The truth about Stevie Nicks' pre-show ritual finally emerged through candid interviews she gave in recent years, and the details are more elaborate than anyone imagined. Approximately 2 hours before every performance, Nicks begins a ceremony that has remained virtually unchanged since the mid-1970s. The ritual starts with the lighting of specific candles. Not just any candles, but ones she's carefully selected and often blessed herself. She arranges them in a particular pattern around her dressing room, creating what she describes as a sacred circle of protection and energy. The candles serve multiple purposes. They provide the right lighting for meditation, create a specific atmosphere, and symbolically represent the 4 elements that she believes influence her performance. Next comes the crystal arrangement. Nicks travels with a collection of stones and crystals that she's gathered over decades, each one chosen for its supposed metaphysical properties. She places them strategically around the room. Amethyst for spiritual protection, rose quartz for love and connection with the audience, and clear quartz for amplifying energy. These aren't random placements. She follows a system she learned from studying various spiritual traditions. The centerpiece of her ritual involves reciting an ancient Celtic prayer that she learned from her Welsh grandmother. She speaks the words in both English and what she believes to be ancient Celtic, asking for protection of her voice, connection with her ancestors, and the ability to channel pure emotion through her performance. What makes Nicks' ritual particularly fascinating is how deeply she connects it to the preservation of her most precious instrument, her voice. The raspy, distinctive tone that has made her one of the most recognizable voices in rock history didn't happen by accident, and she spent decades protecting it through both medical and mystical means. During her pre-show ceremony, Nicks performs specific vocal exercises while holding certain crystals near her throat chakra. She believes this combination of practical vocal preparation and spiritual energy work creates a protective barrier around her voice. Given that she's maintained her vocal power well into her 70s, performing demanding songs night after night, there's something to be said for her methods. Whether you believe in the mystical aspects or not, the prayer she recites includes specific requests for vocal strength and clarity. She's been quoted as saying that she asks her Celtic ancestors to guide her voice and help her deliver the emotional truth of each song. This isn't just superstition for Nicks. It's a deeply held belief that has shaped her entire career. She also incorporates elements of meditation and visualization, spending time mentally preparing for each song in her setlist. She visualizes the energy flowing from her to the audience and back again, creating what she calls a magical circle of connection that transforms both the performer and the crowd. The roots of Nicks' ritual practice trace back to her early days with Lindsey Buckingham before either of them joined Fleetwood Mac. During their struggling years as a duo, living in poverty and sleeping on friends' couches, Nicks began exploring various spiritual practices as a way to cope with uncertainty and find meaning in their musical journey. Her interest in Wiccan traditions and Celtic mythology deepened during the recording of Fleetwood Mac's breakthrough album, Rumours, in 1977. The intense personal drama within the band, multiple relationship breakups, divorces, and affairs, created an emotionally charged atmosphere that Nicks felt required spiritual protection. She began developing her ritual practices as a way to maintain her sanity and artistic focus during one of the most turbulent periods in rock history. The song Rhiannon, which became one of her signature pieces, was directly inspired by her study of Welsh mythology and the story of a mystical woman who could enchant people with her voice. This wasn't just artistic inspiration. Nicks genuinely believed she was channeling something ancient and powerful through her music. Her ritual practices intensified during Fleetwood Mac's massive world tours of the late 1970s and early 1980s. Performing night after night in different cities, dealing with the pressures of fame and the ongoing interpersonal drama within the band, she relied increasingly on her spiritual practices to maintain her equilibrium and artistic authenticity. When word of Nicks' elaborate pre-show rituals began circulating within the music industry, reactions were mixed. Some viewed her practices as harmless eccentricity, while others saw them as evidence of instability or attention-seeking behavior. However, her bandmates in Fleetwood Mac learned to respect and accommodate her needs, even when they didn't understand or share her beliefs. Mick Fleetwood, the band's drummer and de facto leader, eventually became protective of Nicks' ritual time, ensuring that she had the privacy and space needed for her preparations. He recognized that whatever she was doing in those pre-show hours, it worked. She consistently delivered powerful, emotionally connected performances that were often the highlight of their concerts. The music industry's attitude toward spirituality and mysticism in the 1970s and 1980s was generally skeptical, but Nicks' commercial success gave her the leverage to maintain her practices without interference. Record executives and venue managers might have found her requirements unusual, but they couldn't argue with the results. Other musicians began to take notice of Nicks' disciplined approach to performance preparation. While few adopted her specific mystical practices, many began to understand the value of having consistent pre-show rituals that helped them achieve the right mental and emotional state for performing. Now at 76, Stevie Nicks continues to perform her pre-show ritual with the same dedication she's maintained for nearly 5 decades. What started as a young woman's search for spiritual grounding has evolved into a sophisticated practice that combines elements of meditation, vocal preparation, and psychological preparation for performance. Thanks for watching. Click here to check another video and make sure to subscribe to our channel.